Pine Valley Mountains, Utah, on the border of Nevada, Lincoln County, maybe parts of Clark as well. It's more of a cercocarpus forest at the moment than in the Pine Valley, which is in the forward direction. Lots of campgrounds down there, wealthy houses, retirees and families, mostly at the campground. This first week of October. But this first week of October, we are going up into the Pine Valley Mountains through this spectacular cercocarpus forest, mountain mahogany forest, if you will, if you have to. And, hence, thence, into different life zones. We'll see what we encounter. At around 10,000 feet, here in the Pine Valley Mountains, whose base we start at in Pine Valley Village, if you will, at the base of the mountains in that direction. First week of October, crisp autumn conditions, especially at night. Fairly warm this middle morning. You can see deciduous plant life is rapidly fading away up here. Not quite so for every individual of Monardella up here. I believe it's probably odoratissima. First flowering individual of anything I've seen up here on the main ridge now. I came up the canyon back there, Forsyth Canyon, late last night, so I didn't really see much of what was going on either way. The lupins are rapidly fading away. Ribes rapidly fading. A lot of the aspens have even black leaves. I don't know what that quite means. Whether they're drought and disease stricken, a priori, and then start to lose their leaves for the autumn and winter. We'll have to get a look at that somewhere. I'm sure it's a fairly widespread phenomenon. They were just crisping right in my hands. Still an extraordinary ash cloud sweeping over from California. I've lost track at this point, but it's 5 or 6 million acres of forest that have burnt there since August, I believe. It's now first week of October, and I can barely see beyond my own mountain range here. At least I can see this place, though. A little tough breathing in this stuff, though, on the uphills. Almost at the top, though, and then I think it's a mostly meandering, who knows, ridgeline. I didn't really look into it that much. I don't like to look into things that much. Why ruin the surprise? So if ever seemed particularly ignorant at any of these places, it's because I prefer it that way. I like to figure it out along the way. I like to find it out along the way. Depending. Some things I plan more for than others. But I just know I'm following one trail that it's called the Summit Trail to the northern end of these mountains. I'm at the southern tip at the moment, and we'll see what it brings me along the way. It's pretty bad. Here's the range high point, a signal peak. I've chosen to approach the high point today because it's the warmest day today, and most of the rest of this trip will be at lower elevations as an autumnal cool down progresses. Finally, and thank goodness. Should be able to see into Nevada right now, but big ash cloud of southern Nevada at the moment. Lots of lichen in this old growth. It's just covering the ground from above. Usnea, I believe. I'm no lichenologist, but I've dabbled once or twice. Tells you that there's frequently clouds up here, I would say. I think there was some summer monsoon activity here, despite the fact that Las Vegas got nothing and the rest of southern Nevada. Such a drapery of lichen. You have to be a fairly wet forest, relatively speaking at least. The air is decidedly cooler in this saddle between the two high points of the range in this lichen forest. I could even stand to put on a long sleeve layer if it weren't for these worm bouts of sunshine. These worm bursts of sunshine. I suppose the trail's not going to go anywhere near the actual Signal Peak high point, for I'm now going through a nice open park, clearly very autumnal. Nothing left flowering. A park in the midst of the forest, just traverses wet lichen, mostly dug fir, some spruce slopes, which was pretty amazing. I recommend it. And we'll see what's on the other side of the park. This is what happens to a grove of veratrum when it dries the heck out. Lots of sedges in this park as well. Tells you there's supposed to be water here. Jeez. I don't really think they're supposed to die this way. I think they died of drought stress. I've never seen anything like this, actually, even though I've seen plenty of veratrum around the world. Yeah, it's ash dry, if you will. Not ash as in Fraxinus, of course. Ash as in the freaking ash haze everywhere. It's a veratrum graveyard is what it is, because they don't look like they got to maturity. Don't really look like they flowered and fruited all that well. sure they can deal with 1 or 2 years of this, but if they had 5 years of this, I bet you'd start to see veratrum start to disappear from these particular hills. Trails out here are very well used. There's an abundance of campsites, so I'm sure there's a lot of people up here in the summer trying to escape the lower desert heat of various nearby population centers, including that of southern Nevada. But apparently a Tuesday in October is the time to be here, because I haven't seen a soul. Got another parklet in between the forest, rather old growth forest. Very pleasant temperatures and slopes. Nice to be on well-kept trails like this. Extensive older growth forest along the apex of the Pine Valley Mountains. It's very special, but unfortunately may not be around that much longer. That haze is bad, isn't it? So, to the left there, straight ahead in the shot, in the frame shot, there's a burnt forest right up adjacent to the rich north facing slope forest. So the fire has always been and always will be a factor up here, but if it's too warm and dry in the future, might be a different forest type coming up here. Might be pinyon junipers instead of the, five needle pines, Doug firs, spruce, abies, etc. Some nice oranges to contrast with the crispy blacks I've been seeing. Following the crest up here. These ones aren't looking so good. First water I've seen today is in this scenic park here. Just a couple puddles over there. I'm going to pass for now, since I still have at least 3 liters. Should get me to the end of tomorrow, at which point, yeah, I'm going to have to find some kind of watery canyon of some sort either way. Quite a chill has suddenly descended upon the land with the descent of the sun. As far as these crispy leaves go, what's happened here is that the green leaves have simply died first and become crispy themselves, so they don't turn pretty oranges and yellows when they die first like that. Presumably from drought. The drought is just exceptional. Exceptional. Look at all these dead leaves. That's not how they're supposed to die. Another nice cool night last night in the 30s, yet without a frost. I just slept in that nice flat shaded grove right there, and awakened to this open park right here. I believe there's a series of parks, South Valley, Central Valley, and North Valley, according to the Guppas. And I believe I'm starting this mini traverse of several valleys and the edge of the South Valley here. That must be the Central Valley ahead. The glare is something else. This morning, just walked through this forest. All mixed conifer forest, with the addition of some aspens here and there. And just came over from the South Valley to the Central Valley through that forest, along that drainage. Even found a little pocket of fresh water, which was much needed. Onwards to the North Valley via the Central. These parks are quite pleasant. They even hold the only pockets of water I've seen outside of my initial canyon ascent. That's a small sheet of ice right there. Recent winds have taken their toll on the aspen canopy. Not much left up there. So odd to see so many crispy green leaves on the ground though. I don't know what to make of that now. Hear 'em? First real view today. The haze is a bit better, not by much. We'll take what we can get though, including views of Zion, a one-of-a-kind place on Earth. Walking through a relatively small, I hope, burn area. Trail becomes hard to follow in such places. Aspens starting to regenerate after the fire, so they're a successional species, as you can see right before our eyes. And not so many young Douglas firs and such coming back, although a few. Lots of thermopsis. Lots of Asteraceae, of course. Lots of young aspen. Look at that. Basically clogging up the trail. Great to see water still being sourced out of the burn area. Again, the burn wasn't devastating. If this were a fully open area, I doubt there'd be water here. It'd be too exposed and dry and whatnot. But yeah, moss and epilobium hanging on in this little oasis. Tastes pretty good too. Tastes better than that park water I was drinking. Some arnica is still hanging on along the creek as well. Most going to fruit. In a normal year, you'd still see the occasional flowering plant outside of riparian areas, outside of creek sides, but this is really the only time I've seen flourishing perennial growth still. These delphiniums here, quite green still. So, tiny pocket, tiny corridor of lushness. Epilobium going wild in fruit here. They float along the wind and find other waterways, other oases elsewhere in the desert. Seeds are complemented by little tufts of hair called comas, and that's a means of getting quite a distance away from here with a good breeze. Imagine when the next windstorm comes through here, 30-40 miles an hour wind speed, and just watch these things blow right away. Lots of weediness in the burn area. Lots of raspberries coming up here. Got thistles. And the aspens themselves are extremely weedy at the moment. You can barely see the trail for all the aspen growth. All that burn area is the northern end of the highest and wettest parts of these mountains. Suddenly, there's a Cercocarpus latifolius around here, as well as aspens and mixed conifers from higher up, but the stark appearance of such a species, it means going into somewhere a lot drier. You know, Cercocarpus is one of the dominant tree, shrubs, whatever, those things, of the Great Basin, which is quite dry. So yeah, the path ahead looks lower and drier either way. The trail goes on for a bit longer. Then I'll circle back towards this area via some side canyons, side trails, rather than just strictly following the same route back. And then probably head to the right there and head down, have a choice of two canyons to head down from that direction back towards Pine Valley, and fulfilling a loop back to my car. Quite a fantastic experience overall, I have to say. It's a little warmer here too. I'm wearing short sleeves for sure. So even though there's Cercocarpus back there, we're not in fact in the Great Basin. It extends beyond the Great Basin to quite an extent actually. But that's the Colorado River tributary in that direction, Virgin River and such. Zion National Park, Clear Creek, etc. And that direction, we're on the boundary of the Mojave Desert, not the Great Basin. Parts of the Mojave are in the Great Basin, but on this side of things, that's the Colorado Basin, Colorado River drainage. And we're also on the edge of the Colorado Plateau. So as soon as things start rising in that direction, that's firmly on the Colorado Plateau, extending out to the southern Rocky Mountains. Descended into a Ponderosa dominant ridge system. Autumn's still very much struck here already. Look at Symphoricarpus, for example. There's manzanitas everywhere. Prickly pears just started appearing, while there's also aspen trees and kind of more cold-loving artemisias. So a very interesting mix of species on this ridge. There's a refugial grove of aspens on the top there, it looks like. And much of the rest of the slopes have been burnt out. Even though the mixed forest may be giving rise to chaparral, and walking through miles and miles and miles of burn with the chaparral coming in, it's beautiful nonetheless. As long as there's always water here, this will remain a paradise in the desert. Walked through burn area most of the day today at this point. This morning had some old growth mixed forest. It's been more or less burn area ever since. It's okay, there's good and bad things about the burns. The bad is that it seems to have wiped most of the soil out, because I see bare rock exposed everywhere. Literally everywhere. The good is that it opens up the views and contributes to habitat diversity. Well, end of yesterday's walk brought me down into the Quercus EJ Cercocarpus zone. Basically at the end of the summit trail. So this is what the summit trail has become. Fairly low and flat road. A sagebrush step. Definitely heading south now. Back towards where I parked in Pine Valley. Still plenty of Abies concolor around, despite the decidedly chaparral and step-like aspect prevailing across this place. Even got new ones regenerating. It's pretty hot this first to second week of October, though, I have to say, for being in the morning still too. Fairly gentle walking through this mostly chaparral terrain. Traversing a rock ledge at the moment. The subalpine firs are not that far away, just right up slope there. So you can see the big effect of slope and elevation on forest structure in the west, just in this one little valley. Straight ahead there is where the two zones really meet. Contouring along the slopes of the range, western slopes that is. Nevada just over the horizon there. The high country of the Pine Valley Mountains up there and towards that away. You can see the part of the high country in the distance. I'm walking back towards it now. I imagine after this contour I'll be dropping down another canyon pretty soon. And probably follow that canyon down to its base, where there's a broader valley. Take that broader valley back to the parking lot. Lots of broad steps up here. So there are lots of wet parks up there, more like fens, if you will. Here we got open steps, probably tiny pockets of water here and there. Haven't come across any yet though. Then even lower down, hotter and drier valleys. See Nevada in the distance there, covered in ash clouds still. Great. Makes you wonder what all that ash deposition has upon the landscape in Nevada. Way out there, covered in ash clouds for a good 2 months now. And that's a whole lot of nutrient deposition upon the landscape. And Nevada is right downwind from all of it. Basically every major fire in California, yeah, ends up tossing its ashes downwind into Nevada first. So, wonder what kinds of effects these major nutrient deposition events have on landscape in Nevada in particular. It's not like this is a common type of burn year. I think it's over double the current record yet, and it's only early October, with fire expected through November still, of course. That's a massive nutrient load leaving California for Nevada and beyond. It's landing here in Utah. It's making its way to Colorado. It's been reported on the East Coast. But Nevada, right there, that's the immediate downwind ash cloud destination, where surely much of it is falling. Time to leave the high country behind and descend into Grass Valley, right over this rise here. At the base of the range now on the western slope. Hope you enjoyed all that autumn richness above. I sure did. It's a great contrast from autumn in the Mojave, which is still quite hot still. Still some deciduous life down here, tree and shrub life. Barely even touched autumn on some of those individuals. But autumn is ever present either way. Plenty of oaks were losing their leaves, or browning their leaves rather. Oaks don't tend to lose their leaves until the spring, but they lose their color this time of year, and they sure are widespreadly above losing their color. You can see them doing that on that hillside there, as a matter of fact. Those were all oaks for the most part. Quercus kimbellii. Even the sumacs starting to go in a widespread fashion. Snowberries too. Salix too, starting to yellow. Sumacs are pretty though. Grass Valley Creek higher up was, there were wetlands up there, but down here it's parched as can be. I think that's Grass Valley Reservoir. There's a lone cow standing in the middle. That's how dry it is. Just walked the length of Grass Valley. Now it's time to head down to Pine Valley. So, probably wrap things up with this missive. Adios amigos, and have a wonderful day.